The early to mid-2000s were a tumultuous time for the world of animated films. The medium was getting closer to shedding the perception that it's solely for kids, instead offering smart films with complex narratives, interesting themes, and emotional appeal that could impact children and adults alike. This all-out assault on the emotional stability of American moviegoers was led by Pixar Animation Studios, who for a time got more philosophically interesting with each release. Pixar's WALL-E brilliantly navigates the post-apocalyptic genre to speak a great deal about the impending climate disaster, the nature of humanity, and what sort of attitudes could save the world from ruin. That's a tall order, even for Pixar, but they pulled it off with expert ability. Let's find out how they did it.
Out there's a world outside of Yonkers.
From the opening shots alone, there's a clear picture being painted. The echoes of a song from Hello Dolly alongside the majesty of the universe are immediately contrasted with the desolate and almost entirely hopeless landscapes of Earth. From them, the audience is shown the remains of a once great American city, complete with trash piles, trashed skyscrapers, and ruins of all-consuming capitalist monoliths, all coated under the haze of air pollution. The breadcrumb trail continues, showing wind turbines and other renewable energy sources among the heaps of waste, the pitiful efforts to clean up the garbage, and the fact that humans have abandoned the planet when it became too inhospitable. There's no question about what happened here. A complete ecological breakdown scarred the planet nearly beyond recognition, and any attempts to stop it were too few too late. This opening scene is a master class in using mise-en-scène to establish world building, but it lays the foundation for the cultural message that lie beneath the surface of this unsuspecting film. The climate of the mid to late 2000s is key to understanding WALL-E. The scientific community continued to press the importance of combating global warming, and the dwindling of biodiversity and ecological sustainability was an increasingly inconvenient truth. No longer were films with environmental messages relegated to the likes of Ferngully, a movie that somehow managed to make less money at the box office than Encino Man. Documentaries about the climate crisis were winning Oscars, a resurgence in apocalyptic films were capturing the attention of audiences, and a greater effort to support the environment was being taught at schools. The trend was growing ever so popular that even the New York Times took notice. In A.O. Scott's review of WALL-E, he writes, "As the Earth heats up, the vanishing of humanity has become something of a hot topic, a preoccupation shared by directors like Steven Spielberg, Francis Lawrence, M. Night Shyamalan, and Werner Herzog. In his recent documentary, Encounters at the End of the World, Mr. Herzog muses that the human presence on this planet is not really sustainable, a sentiment that is voiced almost verbatim in the second half of WALL-E. When the whimsical techies at Pixar and a moody German auteur are sending out the same message, it might be time to pay attention." Even though apocalyptic movies in general and ecological disaster films were in vogue at the time, it cannot be understated how unprecedented it was that Pixar even attempted an apocalyptic film of this nature. But all of this dense storytelling exists solely in the first few minutes before the audience is even shown the protagonist. When WALL-E first appears on screen, he has incredible treads to fill. He is the last remnant of the final hope for humanity, the sole survivor of the cleanup crew that has made little progress to save Earth over the last 700 years. He is a complete embodiment of the ineptitude humanity has to offer, at least in theory. In practice, though, it quickly becomes apparent he's more than that. Nearly immediately, the audience is shown everything they need to know by his character. David Denby of The New Yorker described it as, "Accompanied only by a cockroach, WALL-E trolls among the detritus of the vanished culture. The junk items he finds become fetishes for him. He holds onto plastic forks, hubcaps, Zippo lighters, and throws away a diamond ring while keeping the felt box. He lives in a steel garbage dump that is at once home, arcade, archaeological museum, and church." Among his collection lies not a recording of Messiah or Beethoven's Ninth, but a tape of the 1969 musical Hello Dolly, a movie considered lumbering and out of date when it opened. All of this is a deliberate appropriation of the conventions of a Last Man on Earth apocalyptic film. His noise echoes through the empty city streets, his crippling isolation leads to some unusual choice of friends, and most importantly, he takes up the role of museum curator for the last vestiges of human culture. This is something that is seen time and time again, in old examples and new examples alike, but for WALL-E, there's no use in having the ruby slippers from The Wizard of Oz, important historical documents, or even diamond rings. He has no interest in musicals or old films many would consider masterpieces. He's completely enamored by the oddities of everything around him. This is not only used to great comedic effect, it sets the plot in motion and establishes him as a character. He encounters a tiny seedling, and to everyone's knowledge, the last remnant of the plant kingdom on Earth, or maybe the entire universe. A typical robot would think nothing of this, likely crushing it and killing it in the process. But WALL-E, being enamored by all things bizarre as cultural touchstones for humanity, saves the plant, adding it to his collection. In doing so, he unwittingly adds the last hope for the human spirit to his personal museum. His yearning to understand what it is to be human, ironically, will eventually ensure the preservation of the mystical beings that created him. That part of the film begins with the arrival of the Eve probe, a robot tasked with finding the biological evidence that life is sustainable on Earth. She explores the desolate city, capturing the attention and heart of WALL-E. In a sequence of stalking and shrine building only Pixar could manage to make endearing, WALL-E manages to finally interact with Eve, taking her to admire his collection, including his most important find, the plant. With her directive fulfilled, Eve takes the plant for safekeeping and enters a hibernation mode. WALL-E attempts to care for Eve, even trying to woo her in the process. His obsession with Hello Dolly motivates him to pursue romance, and to once again quote Denby, "A bad old movie keeps the human idea alive in two robots." But as it turns out, humans aren't extinct. They've been on a mind-numbing cruise filled with Sigourney Weaver's soothing voice cramming consumerism and mindlessness down their throats.
Attention Axiom shoppers, try blue. It's the new red.
Ooh. They're incapable of moving on their own, instead being transported entirely by hoverchair. Completely oblivious to their surroundings, the humans spend time interacting with computers, machines, and endless consumption, all without the spark of human spirit. The movie is making something abundantly clear here. By totally embracing the hollow pleasures of life without worry, they have lost what it means to be human. The captain of the ship, while finding out what life on Earth was like, even says this.
Oh, Earth is amazing! These are called farms. Humans will put seeds in the ground.
He says humans, like he wasn't one of them. They're so disconnected from their own species that they no longer see themselves as like their ancestors who lived on Earth. This is also deliberately shown by the inclusion of live action, an extreme rarity for Pixar. The humans who once dwelled on Earth are shown with live actors, and as generations passed, they become animated models. There's a physical and mental disconnect in everyone except WALL-E, who ironically is not even human. One of their own creations has somehow surpassed them in the spark of life, sense of curiosity, intrigue, self-sufficiency, and even basic awareness of surroundings. He's quite literally more of a person than any of them. The true apocalypse is not the death of humans as a species, but the death of humanity as an experience. But this is Pixar. It's physically impossible for them to end on a note like that. As poetic and disturbingly complex as that message may be, this movie also needs to keep up the impression that it was made for general audiences. The remainder of this movie is spent with these ideas in mind, with WALL-E now taking the responsibility of righting these wrongs. He starts off by disillusioning a few passengers and robots aboard the ship, causing them to have an awakening of sorts. The mise-en-scène is hard at work establishing these themes as well. When the robots are first shown, they all follow strict paths dictated by lines on the floor, to which WALL-E ignores, leaving a trail of his own wherever he goes. This forces a cleaning robot to jump off the line, the only thing it's ever known, and follow WALL-E's metaphorical and literal trail. He then breaks the illusory world for a few humans, knocking them out of their chairs, shutting off their computers, and changing the color of their outfits. His infectious spirit causes them to truly see the world for the first time. His unbridled optimism and ability to see hope in the direst of circumstances slowly has huge ramifications for the passengers, the other robots, and his personal love story. In true Pixar fashion, WALL-E single-handedly spreads his idea of the human experience to the whole ship. This leads the captain of the ship, with a newfound sense of duty and caring, to take the ship back to Earth, no matter what struggles lie in his way. He learns to walk, showcases amazing grip strength, and defeats the robot autopilot. They return to Earth, plant the tree, and begin the process of recovering what it means to be alive. It's not quite as poetic as the opening, but it speaks volumes about the good and bad of human nature, especially the American way of life. Breaking free of the illusion of consumerism and needless waste is necessary if we as humans want to have any hope of preserving ourselves, our planet, and the future. But in order to do so, we need the boundless nature of WALL-E to save ourselves. A sense of duty, interest in the world around us, selflessness, and above all, love. That vision certainly hasn't been realized yet, but as long as there's still green and people to care, hope isn't lost. The movie smartly argues in favor of sooner rather than later, like with the wind turbines and things from the beginning. But Pixar argues that the uncrushable optimism of WALL-E and human resilience is vital to saving ourselves. To call WALL-E as a film a masterpiece is not doing it proper justice. The fact that it conveys so much information and emotion nearly wordlessly is purely mind-boggling. It's desolate yet uplifting, a condemnation of human greed yet reinforces the idea of a collective being stronger. It's a movie about robots ruling the world, yet a touching love story that saves the world and keeps hope alive. It balances all of these hats delicately and with great skill, making sure each one gets the proper care it deserves, just like the plant. Through meticulous storytelling and visual imagery, not a single moment is wasted, just like we don't have a moment to lose if we want to save ourselves. WALL-E goes from being the last man on Earth barely scraping by in the apocalypse to the savior of humanity, nearly sacrificing himself in the process. This message was important in 2008, but I'd argue it's even more important now. That's why I think WALL-E is one of the best films ever made, and this exploration of it just focuses on one aspect of many. Thank you so much for watching this discussion of WALL-E. I hope you enjoyed. I have a lot more to say about WALL-E, but if I didn't force myself to stop here, I'd easily be here for twice or 3 times as long. So, how do you like WALL-E? Let me know in the comments. Also, tell me your favorite Pixar movie. If you do, I'll give your comments a heart. If you enjoyed, consider subscribing. It helps me talk about this kind of thing more. But that's it for me. Goodbye for now.